Today, what we're going to do is get started on your first ever game. First thing you need to do is open up Unity. It's not going to be a game in the sense that it's going to have a player interface. It's only really going to be a game to show you some code commands and how they function. But this is what you're going to land on. You won't have a bunch of projects here, most likely. It should be empty. It might even come up on the Learn tab initially. But what you're going to do, you'll open this up. You're going to create a new project. You can call it whatever you want. Let's say my first game. And then template, we are going to use 2D for now. We don't need it to be 3D. You don't need to worry about this other stuff. Basically, this is just the location it's saving in. Any asset packages, which you'll learn a lot more about later. Organization doesn't matter. So you create, and it'll do this loading stuff. And eventually it will pop up whenever it's done importing everything. All right, so this is the Unity interface, which before now you should have gotten your hands on and gotten a little more familiar with. But just a quick review. This is the scene view. This is where you put any assets into your game. This down here is, it's lagging, the game view. This is where it shows what your game would look like currently. This right here is the console. We're going to be using a lot on this one because we are not going to be printing anything to the actual game screen. We are just going to be giving it commands that it will then print on the console using a code piece called debug.log. Hierarchy, this contains all of your game objects. Everything that is in here, your camera, your lighting, all of that jazz is all going to be a game object. Your project panel, this is where you'll organize all your assets that you have in your game. The services window I'm going to ignore and move over to inspector because this is the one you really need whenever you open up a game object. So say, for example, the main camera, this has all the information for the camera. It tells you what type of camera it is. It's orthographic. And all these other things you'll learn a lot more about now. For now, just accept that that's where you change things. So first thing we've got to do, I like to keep everything organized from the start. So in my project view, which yours may be a little bit different. Let me actually change mine to default. Right here. Okay. I'm going to change mine to default so it looks exactly like yours. So what I've got here should look exactly like what you have. So in this project panel in the assets area, I'm going to create a new folder. So I right-clicked, create folder. I'm going to call this one _scripts. Now, underscore isn't necessary in naming the folder. I do it so that I will have my scripts folder at the top because it's alphabetized and underscores and symbols take precedence before letters. So anything that I want to be able to access easily, especially if you get a bunch of asset packs put in here, it's easier to find the things that you're looking for if your important information has an underscore and is at the top of your project panel. So in fact, I'm actually going to change my scenes name, so I'm going to rename it, put an underscore underneath of it because that's pretty important too. So these two folders will always be at the top, and that's just a personal preference. You don't have to do that. I just like to do it for the sake of organization. So you'll open up your scripts, and then inside your scripts, you're going to create, right-click again, create, and you're going to create a C# script. Now, do not click off of the script. If you leave it new behavior script, blah, 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 and So let me just show you what happens. Okay, so I'm going to leave it called this. So right here on the right, you can see a preview of what this script looks like. This is what it's going to open up with the script that's already imported. You see it's called public class new behavior script, which is the name that it was left with already, right? So let's say I change it to something else. Notice this did not change. You'll run into a lot of problems because these two things now no longer identify with each other. So I'm just going to delete this one. Right click, delete. Yeah, that's fine. And then I'm going to make another one. This time I'm going to name it properly. Let's call it the game because that's what it is essentially. Wow, that was weird. I don't know what I did. I'm going to try again. Create C# script. Game. I don't know what it's doing. Weird. Anyway, public class game. You see that matches now over there. Now, this script just exists inside of our project. It's not actually implemented anywhere. It doesn't exist on anything that's within the scene. So I'm actually going to add it to the camera because the camera already exists in the screen. Another thing you could do if you don't want it attached to your camera, you could right-click in your hierarchy and create an empty game object. And this is just an object that exists inside your scene, and you can drag your script onto the empty game object. And that's fine just as well. So first things first, we're going to open this. So this, whenever you double click on the script, it will open Microsoft Visual Studio. For you, it might, as soon as you open it, ask you to log in, create a user ID. That's fine. Go ahead and do that. Won't hurt anything. But for me, popped right up because I've already done this. And so let's just talk about what you see here. So from your notes, you know a little bit about this stuff, but you've never seen it in action. And I'm sorry, if your theme doesn't match, you can change that at a later date, but I have the dark theme running, so you might have a white screen, but essentially they are the same. So right here at the top, we're using system.collections, using system.collections.generic, and using Unity Engine. So see if I hover over it, it says the namespace Unity Engine. So remember, your namespaces are basically like dictionaries for your code to access while you're working. One of the great things about Visual Studio is that if you start typing and it recognizes what you're trying to do, it will try to auto-complete it for you, or at least help you find valid things that you could use for it. Public class, that's the game that we're running right now. This is a public class. Worry more about that later. You see these / use this for initialization. These forward slashes are here because this part of the code is what we call commented out. That means that this is just text. It's not code. The engine does not read it. The script does not read it. It is just there for note taking. So like say I wanted to make some notes to myself, like in void start, the first thing I want to do is I want to print to my console. Okay, so now I have made kind of a note to myself of what I want to accomplish, and then I can start writing the actual code. That's what commenting out does. Or maybe if you're problem solving something, you're saying I want it so that if, so / let's see, if player hits up arrow, then the number gets higher. Okay, so now I've kind of made like a long form version of an if statement, right? So I've got notes to myself so I can, like, as I'm typing, reference those notes and then go back to it. And then I wouldn't leave this stuff in here forever. I'd delete it so that it's clean, like so. Okay, so on your script, now that you have everything kind of figured out what goes where, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to deal with this void start. This is a method which you know from the Unity C# basics that we have on our website. So if you want to review, you can always go to the website, go to methods. What is a method? It's also known as a function. A method is a section of code that contains statements, begins and ends with curly brackets. So you see void start was used as an example, and it runs at the initialization of the script, which is also the note that is right here that Unity provides with the start of a script every time you start one. So what we're going to deal with as far as code for this is we're going to be using a lot of a code piece called debug.log. So I'm going to start typing debug, which you see is already popping up, dot, and now it gives me a bunch of different debug options. I want .log, like so. And then debug.log, let's go back to the example here. Now it needs to be capitalized. Debug.log. This is the format that debug.log needs to be written in. It needs to have curly it needs to have parentheses, and you have something inside of it. So if I put not curly brackets, that's silly. Parentheses. So now it expects an object message. Right now we want a string in the message, so we need to put quotation marks to mark that it's going to be a string, and I'm going to have it say hi. And now you see these little marks right here. If you hover over it, says there is a semicolon expected, which means that we are ending a statement. If you, again, remember from your notes on anything on here that statements need to be finished with semicolons, so you can always go back to your notes whenever you want. So I'm going to save this. I hit Control S. That's the fastest way to save. You can always go up to File, Save, however you want to do it. I just like to use shortcuts. Minimize it. I rearranged this a little bit because I didn't like that my console and my project were overlapping each other. And I also don't really like this layout. I don't like having these two columns. So I'm going to go back to the one column layout. I like it a lot better. I think it's cleaner. And I'm not a big fan of the hierarchy over here, so I'm going to put the hierarchy over here. And I'm going to try to match these up a little bit. Nope, they don't want to match. Okay, that's fine. Regardless, I like this right hand with the play area on the left side much better. Okay, so I've saved it. I'm going to go up to play. Now, there's nothing on the game scene because we haven't put any actual physical game objects. We haven't told the camera to look like anything, but the console has this message printed on it now that says hi, and it says Unity Engine debug log, which is the code that we use to print to the console, which is perfect. So that's all we wanted to do for right now. So I'm just going to hit the play button again to get out of play mode. And you'll notice that it had switched automatically from scene to game mode. It'll do that automatically. I'm going to go back to Visual Studio over here. So I don't actually want my game to start with hi. What we're going to be making is going to be a number guessing game. And I have a challenge for you. I want you to use debug.log to create a series of lines of script that give the player instructions. So you need to have a line that says, welcome to my guessing game, however you want to say that, my number guessing game, look into my crystal ball, whatever you want to do. You need to have a line that says the max, pick any number. The max number is blank, let's say 1,000. Another line that says the lowest number you can pick is blank, 150, whatever you want to do. I'm going to do 1,001 as my two numbers. And then that's what all I want from you to know. Make sure that you put it in void start. That's your one hint for this, because if you put things in void update, so let's say I move this down here and I save it. Do not do this on your computer because it will probably have a lot more trouble than mine. But if I run this, every single frame that loads, you can see it has loaded all of these messages. Update happens every single frame that the game processes, so you do not want that there. Everything should be in void start. I'm going to put that right back and save it. Okay, so we're going to stop this video right here, and I want you to, before you load the next video, go in and try to write out those steps that I told you to write. Remember, you need to have an introduction to your game. You need to tell them they need to pick any number between a highest number and a lowest number. And that's it for now, okay? So try that out on your own.